We all know the importance of accountability. It builds trust, empowers decision making, enhances productivity and performance, promotes trust and transparency, and so much more. So, how do we teach it? And when can those lessons begin? Camp leaders, win back your time to what matters most your campers. Bolin's comprehensive accounting, back office solutions, and tech enabled team free up your staff to focus on your mission. Visit bolinhq.com, that's BOWLINEHQ.com, to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. Remember what sparked your passion for camp? UltraCamp knows it's about the people, not the paperwork. That's why they built a platform to simplify your camp management. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Welcome to Camp Code, a podcast brought to you by GoCamp.Pro. For us in the world of summer camp, there's nothing more important than well-researched, well-planned, well-thought-out, and well-prepared leadership training. It's at the crux of all we do. It's how we deliver a safe, exciting, kind, supportive, growth-filled experience for our campers and their families. It's how we have staff return year after year, and it's how we make the biggest impact on the world around us. So join us as we delve into the world of staff training, the good, the hard, and everything in between. We're in it together. Welcome to our episode on accountability. And if you've been listening for years with our series, we have done this before, but we have new ideas for you this time because it's such an important topic. We all know that workplace accountability involves holding each person accountable for their actions. It leads to higher commitment and morale among staff, which boosts productivity. It's absolutely something we all want to strive for in our camp communities and role model to both our staff and our campers, our future leaders. So before we get into the thick of it with practical tips and tricks to teach accountability, we'll just take a moment to introduce ourselves. Gabrielle.
Hello, everybody. So happy to be here. My name is Gabrielle, and I'm one of the camp directors at Camp.Pro. My pronouns are she, her, and elle, if you want to speak to me in French. At Camp.Pro, we try to create a positive environment for gender minorities, and we do that while speaking in French and English.
Thanks, Gab. And I'm Beth Allison. I'm a former camp director, executive director, and now a camp consultant from Woodstock, Ontario, Canada. I'm a co-owner of Camp Hacker and GoCamp.Pro, and my pronouns are she and her. The wonderful Fred Rogers once said that there is a world of difference between insisting on someone's doing something and establishing an atmosphere in which that person can grow into wanting to do it. So, how do we teach accountability? Creating a culture of accountability at summer camp is essential for building trust and ensuring that responsibilities are met and fostering that sense of pride in camp success. So I've got, I don't know, about 9 tips for you today. So we'll start with the first 3.
Of course you do, Beth.
Number 1 is to set clear expectations from day 1. Outline the roles and responsibilities, starting with your staff applications and your interviews, expectations as to when things are due, when answers are required, when contracts need to be signed, and make it clear that these are your expectations and be transparent as to why. At the start of training or even before by sharing some fun videos that are set to music or dance choreography or whatever creative juices you've got, clarify each of the staff members' roles and responsibilities so that everybody knows what's expected of them and understand who does what, who they go to for help and advice, and how your whole system works. Before they really get to camp, they should have some idea of that. Now, maybe not all the details, but at least some idea. And make sure that you're defining success, that team members understand what successful performance looks like in their specific roles. So this includes like behavior expectations or teamwork or punctuality and initiative. And you can use your staff to help you come up with these answers during training through skits or small group discussions or think pair shares or have them write a song. All of these kinds of activities are also obviously group building. So that's a win-win. And I would make sure that you are documenting guidelines. You want to provide written guidelines and job descriptions that they can refer to. So knowing the specific standards that they're held to helps to really build that clarity and accountability. And if you haven't redone your staff manual in the last 2 years, please take a look at it, give it a once over, and do your best to make it welcoming, easily readable. Take out all of the unnecessary information that they don't need in there. It does not have to be a tome to be effective. In fact, you may want to ask a few leadership team members if they would like to redo it with you over the winter. And of course, pay for their time. They have a much better handle on what people their age are looking for in a helpful manual. And of course, we have to lead by example and model accountability. We need to show up on time, communicate openly, and own our mistakes. And when staff see leaders acting accountable, I think they're more likely to follow suit. And along with that goes being transparent in all things, letting our staff know that when you're working to improve yourself, um, and when you're learning from your mistakes, it demonstrates that accountability is a priority for everybody, not just the staff. So we want to be clear about exactly what transparency is. And I like to refer to Simon Sinek's quotes: transparency doesn't mean sharing every detail. Transparency means providing the context for the decisions that we make. So you don't have to tell your staff everything. In fact, you can't, but you can be transparent. And I think finally here we have to insist on and be faithful to those regular check-ins, starting from the time of hiring and continuing throughout the summer and then again through the school year. But open communication now doesn't mean daily, maybe not even weekly, but once they're hired, it does. Obviously during the summer it's going to be daily, and once they're hired maybe you're doing weekly, but right now you're just making sure that you're still connecting with staff from last year or those who are showing an interest, and who are looking to work with you. And we want to provide opportunities for staff to discuss challenges and successes. And this fosters that habit of reporting on progress and asking for help when needed. So I would start with those three: clear expectations, model accountability, and we also want to make sure that we create that safe space for feedback. Staff need to trust that they can give and receive feedback openly without
Mhm.
fear of retaliation, because this builds trust and encourages them to be more forthcoming about their struggles. So when you're doing those check-ins, you want to make sure that you're creating that safe space. Gab, how about you?
Ye- Well, accountability is something that we learn as we become adults, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
parents try to teach that to their kiddos, by saying sorry if you've done something. But as you get older, sort of internal motivation is what we're trying to build within our staff, because we're not present all the time. And so this is a muscle that they're developing and that they're learning. So that's, I think, important to keep in context. They're not going to be perfect at it. Also, unfortunately, there's some pretty strong role modeling out there um, that you don't have to be accountable for your actions, and we're seeing that a lot
Yes.
within the political playing field. And this creates a complex sort of scenario, because we're having very clear representation that accountability isn't necessary. That's not shot fired. It's not shots fired. It is just sort of what is true and real. So I think I agree with you, Beth. Setting clear expectations from the beginning is really important. And then linking that to your mission. And I think a lot of the times when you reverse engineer the mission with your staff on why we are here and why we're going to do the things that we're going to do, including accountability, we can also talk about why is accountability difficult? What creates an unsafe space? When we want to take accountability, what creates a safer space, to step up? I think that sometimes we overcomplicate things as camp directors, or we want to spoon feed people the information. But I think less is more in these situations. So things such as um, setting clear expectations that we will make mistakes. What do you expect from others when they make mistakes? And have people write it out. I expect somebody to say they're sorry. I expect for them to learn. Obviously, we're creating a framework within the staff to do something like this, but everybody's going to come up with something that is very, very similar. And
Mm-hmm.
then we can ask, well, what do you need to say, I'm sorry? What kind of behaviors do you need around you? What kind of time do you need around you? Is there reflection time that is necessary, et cetera, et cetera? Last year, I want to talk a little bit about the role modeling aspect that you were talking about. Last summer, as per usual, I messed up. So yay
Don't we
for
all?
me. It
Don't
is
we all?
shocking. I know everybody's, Gab, you're so perfect. Listeners, guess what? Sometimes I make mistakes too. I made a mistake with we brought in somebody outside of camp to lead some sessions, and because they were the experts, I didn't have a proper conversation with that group to really iron out some of the finer details. And I sort of just stepped back and let them do their things. And because of it, it wasn't super well received within my team. This is not like nothing was harmful or anything like this, but we didn't get the experience that we were hoping for. And after they left, and I did provide feedback, and of course, going to work well with this organization. They're a great organization, but it was a misstep. And but I did have to take responsibility, and I shared it with my staff, like, listen, this didn't go exactly as planned. I had one vision, it went a different way. Here's the misstep that I did, which the misstep was I didn't involve all of my leadership team in some of the planning, which of course takes a little bit more time. And I think I was trying to fast track it. To be listeners, to be honest, I think I was trying to skip a step, and it always bites you in the butt afterwards. So lesson learned. But I shared it with everybody, and then we move, and then if they had any grievances, they can come and talk to me or other assigned leadership team members. But after that, I had a new staff member that came to talk to me, and she asked, "Oh, can I speak with you?" And I was like, "Oh boy, it's going to be about the thing." And I'm like, "Yep," I had a brave face on. And she said, "I literally can't wait for break time to go get my phone to like text my friends to say, wow, I'm part of an organization where the head of the organization is taking partial responsibility for something that they hired somebody to do." She's like, "I just never have seen that kind of accountability. And it's really showing me that what we've said in the interviews, like where you really walk the talk." And that made me feel so great. And I think we can't undersell. Now, not all staff are going to feel that way, but I think some new staff members will see it and see, okay, this is not, they actually do mean what they're saying. So sometimes when you mess up, just know that you will, at least you have the opportunity to role model what taking accountability looks like. So definitely
Mm-hmm.
mission, linking that, setting those expectations, and then role modeling is so important.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our amazing sponsor, and we'll be right back. Camp leaders, do you often find yourself bogged down with bookkeeping, accounting, and other back office tasks, taking precious time away from what matters most, your campers? Imagine a solution that frees up your staff to focus on creating impactful and memorable experiences for your campers. That's where Bolin comes in. Bolin offers comprehensive accounting back office solutions designed specifically for camps. Our tech enabled team handles everything from payroll and bookkeeping to financial reporting, compliance, expense management, spend control, and more, allowing your staff to passionately pursue your number one purpose. With Bolin, you can streamline your camp's financial operations, reduce stress, and ensure your team is free to make a lasting impact in campers' lives. It's time to win back your time and work with a financial partner that truly understands camps. Whether you're a for-profit, not-for-profit, overnight, or day camp, Bolin has a solution for you. Visit bolinhq.com, that's BOWLINEHQ.com, to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. The report is yours whether you sign up or not. Let Bolin take care of your accounting needs so you can focus on what truly matters, your campers. A special offer from UltraCamp for Camp Code listeners. Get ready for next season's staff recruiting with the Camp Experience Wheel, a powerful tool to prevent burnout, boost retention, and make sure your staff feels supported. Download it for free at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Managing your camp shouldn't be a trade-off between quality and cost. With UltraCamp, you get powerful, user-friendly tools that are designed to fit your camp's budget, no compromises necessary. UltraCamp offers clear and flexible options with simple pricing you can trust. Low minimum entry, clear pricing with no hidden fees, flexible payment terms, and no long-term contracts. Get back to what you love. UltraCamp helps you spend less time on admin tasks and more time creating unforgettable camp experiences. Ready to see if UltraCamp is the perfect fit? Schedule your free personalized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Alrighty, let's dive back in. So, my next tip is to establish a system for tracking responsibilities. And this is going to look different for every camp. It has to work for the way that you run things. But I have found that staff need visible task lists and schedules. So I don't know if you use task boards or checklists or digital tools to outline daily and weekly responsibilities. But seeing their tasks helps staff to stay organized and accountable. I think you can also set up accountability partners. So you can pair up staff members as accountability partners who can remind each other of responsibilities, celebrate wins, check in on each other's progress. And they can check in like once a week for 2 minutes every staff meeting or whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be a long and involved thing, but just so that they know that they're accountable to someone in particular. I would also set and follow through with consequences. And this is what you make clear during the hiring process, and also what, of course, you follow through with and discuss in more detail during training. But staff should really know that failing to meet responsibilities has repercussions. And these are not to be set as threats or as punishments, but just as logical consequences. So I would get them to help you figure out what the consequences of inactions or forgetting responsibilities are through like scenarios or skits or small group discussions. You can ask them to figure out the ripple effects to not being accountable or responsible. And I think having these conversations up front helps staff to take expectations seriously because they can kind of see what it means when you're talking about it, when you are giving them some more detail and helping them be involved in that type of conversation. And then of course you have to follow through consistently. Enforcing policies fairly and consistency when responsibilities aren't met, I think, is one of the most difficult things as a camp director, because we're just so darn busy all of the time. And we can let small things slide occasionally because life is just so hectic. And it really can undermine the culture of accountability that you're trying to build. And making sure that we are consistent with whatever those consequences are with each and every staff member, no matter what role they hold at camp. And then I think it's really important to celebrate accountability and responsibility. So recognize success, celebrate staff who consistently demonstrate accountability. I mean, you could give shout outs during meetings or feature them in a newsletter online if that's what you do, or even provide small incentives, whatever works for your team and your staff. It really is important to thank them and reinforce their hard work and dedication. And then, of course, not just individually, but also to highlight team success. We can show how individual accountability contributes to team success, but also like when a staff member fulfills their role effectively, we can acknowledge the impact that it has on the whole group as a whole. So I think making sure that we do some of those celebrations of accountability so that people understand the importance of it and see how it affects camp. What do you think, Gab?
Absolutely. I'm like, yes, I'm writing all these ideas down. I think like as you were speaking, I think that, I love the accountability buddy. And I was trying to think of like a framework that you can do that. And you and
Mhm.
I've talked about the trifecta, like camp, others, and self, and as
Yep.
a framework. And others can divide into three categories as well. Your campers, your peers, and your support staff, or the people that are your supervisors. I think, there's frameworks that you can use as conversations, but I think that if I was trying to be explicit, and I am trying to be with my staff, I think accountability falls under two categories. Showing up and communication. I think this is what you're
I
aiming for.
love
You're
that.
aiming to show up and you're aiming to communicate. So, when a kid's not doing super well, or you're noticing certain signs that they're not connecting well with other kids, the communication, you're showing up for that kid by being present, trying to create connections, but you're also communicating to your supervisor and maybe your teammate. Um, if you have questions, there's the communication piece where you're asking those questions, you're informing yourself. But the third piece I would add in, if you're trying to show up and you're trying to communicate, but you've misstepped, or you're just struggling, you're arriving late. Let's just say you're a great staff member, but time management's not your number one. Is having a problem solving mindset. So we're fine that you struggle in this one area, but we need you to let us know that you're struggling and be open to problem solving with us because we believe in you. But there's a problem solving aspect that needs to be there. And I think sometimes our staff members, they think they just bring the problem and they sort of take a seat back, and it's like, no, you're part of this conversation. So I think if I was to create a framework, I would look at showing up and I would look at communication and perhaps use a trifecta as, how am I showing up for schedules? How am I showing up for paperwork? How am I showing up, for my teammates? How am I showing up for my supervisors? And how am I communicating in these, aspects? I think there's something there to hold on to create that framework. But definitely the problem solving mindset is so important.
You can tell Gab and I have worked together a really long time, because my number 7 is empowering
It's
staff to solve problems.
okay. Of course. But I really believe in it, Beth. So I'm actually
Me
okay.
too.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me.
So encourage initiative. So when staff encounter issues, ask them what steps they think that they can take to solve the problems, rather than, of course, providing them with all the answers. And this, of course, encourages problem solving and builds ownership. And ask them to take the time if they need to come up with a few suggestions and either try them out first before coming back to you, or at least talk through with you how they see their suggestions working out, and then send them out to try one. I also think we need to create a culture of improvement. So encourage those team members to take responsibility for things that could be better. Make it safe for them to suggest improvements or solutions rather than just pointing out problems. So Travis, my husband, often talks about the lean concept, where everyone on staff is encouraged to improve something at camp every day in small little ways, not great big ideas, but just in tiny little ways. So it's about striving for continuous improvement. So it could be that you ask staff to figure out how to improve something by 30 seconds every day. And that's it, just 30 seconds. So it could be something like how the life jackets are stored after canoeing, or how meals are set in the dining hall. But you want to have that constant idea that you're always trying to improve, and that they're part of that solution. And when we talk about providing constructive feedback regularly, we mean delivering feedback promptly. So we want to address issues or praise actions soon after they happen, or as soon as possible after they happen, to reinforce accountability. Delayed feedback often loses impact and relevance. So we need to do our best to be able to deal with issues same day if at all possible. And as Gab has told us many times, we want to use I statements. When discussing an issue, we can model using, I noticed, something like that, to keep feedback constructive and focused on specific behaviors rather than personal traits. And we can teach our staff to do the exact same. And finally, for me, we want to support that growth mindset and learning from mistakes. So, again, we've talked about this on Camp Code so many times, but normalize mistakes as learning opportunities. We want to encourage our staff to see them as part of that learning process rather than failures. They're part of the learning process. So, emphasize the goal isn't to learn and improve, or emphasize that the goal is to learn and improve, not to punish. We've talked about celebrating mistakes on this podcast for almost a decade, and we really mean it. So let's think for a moment, what is so hard about it? Why do people avoid accountability? And I think that the answer is fear. There's fear of failure,
Mm-hmm.
fear of being judged, fear of the consequences, and all these can create a significant barrier to accepting responsibility. So when mistakes happen, that instinctual reaction for so many of us is to protect ourselves from negative repercussions, and therefore we don't own up to them. So we're back to creating an environment where our staff know it's okay to make mistakes. We own up to ours, we learn from them, and that we take responsibility for correcting that. And so, how do we do that? We certainly start with this messaging now, or reaffirm it if it's been part of your narrative for a while, as we begin to hire. And we put it out there that we're a place that embraces learning and growing and changing, which of course requires trying and experimenting and making mistakes and trying again and so on. And we want to make it really clear that we are so fine with mistakes and with learning to make amends or fix errors or learn from them. And then I think that ends with encouraging reflection. When staff do make a mistake, We need to ask them to reflect on what they could do differently next time and not just give them the answer to that. And when they identify their solutions on their own, they're more likely to feel responsible for that progress.
I love
Gab,
it.
back to you.
Yeah, I have one little nugget just to add
Yeah,
to
please.
that. With the I feel statements, this is something that we do, as we like to say at Camp Code, inception session, where we're teaching staff members how to facilitate conversations with our campers. And so one of the, we want campers to feel that they don't need a gaggle of individuals to agree with them to be heard. So I statements is extremely important. The other language that we try to replace is, instead of using, and I don't mean in the pronoun sense, but the they or camp. So they didn't let me, they don't want us to go night swimming, or camp, doesn't want us to have, a bubble machine. What we've taught our staff is that camp and they leaves, there's no room for problem solving with a vague, with camp can't problem solve, and they doesn't lead you to a conversation. So I much prefer that they say Gabs won't let us have a bubble machine, because at least then we know who the person is to have a conversation with. I just went to a conference and they had this huge bubble machine, and the bubbles are biodegradable, and I was like, are we going to rent this bubble machine? And I think we're going to just base a program around it. I mean, I don't know what the program is, but I think we're going to rent it. Anyways, very excited about this bubble machine. But that language, the they and camp, a lot of the time staff, when they're feeling frustrated or they don't have a place to go, or they don't know who to go to, that's a language that is being used. And so we really try to help them use actual people's names when referring to things. I think the other thing is something that you taught me, Beth, when setting expectations, is that there's certain things that are black and white, and there's other things that instead of saying gray, I would say, definitely elasticity is welcomed. So black and white are, your gross misconducts, and we're being very clear about what the consequences are. But here's all the places where elasticity is granted to you. So adapting to the schedule, filling out your paperwork if it's your first time, just taking initiative when you're a first year staff member, and setting those expectations where there's elasticity to grow, elasticity to improve, I think really helps. And every year the elasticity looks different for different staff members. So first year staff member versus a third year staff member does not have the same elasticity. That's not acceptable, but they have more responsibility. They are getting paid more too, BT dubs. But being clear on what's the black and white, and where do we want you to mess up, and where do we want you to make mistakes, as long as you're coming with that communication piece and that problem solving mindset.
I love that.
Yeah.
Are we ready, Gab? Is it recap time?
It is. Recap. Okay, everybody, we have 3 categories: mission, problem solving mindset, and leadership. But first, may I just say a little disclaimer? Our young staff members, they're learning about accountability, especially the ones that are, we wanted them to be the ones that come forward. So this is a muscle that is going to take some time to practice. But listen, lean into the staff members that already are good at this, and let's try to build off of them, and so that it starts to create a ripple effect. I feel if you do this, you're going to see some changes in the summer, but definitely in the next couple of summers to come. So first things first, mission. So let's look at creating links between our expectations, our job descriptions, and what people expect from each other, and link it all to the mission, because that's what we're there for the mission, and we're there to serve the kids. And that really helps with that intrinsic motivation that we want from our staff members. Second of all, we want to be very, very clear that problem solving mindset is extremely important. Some of the ways that we can do that is create space. So accountability buddies, maybe you come up with a different term for your camp, but setting them up, creating a framework that can help with those conversations. Also creating space for them to have, conversations about, dreaming a little bit, like if we could do this micro adjustment, little mini improvement. So it's not just about them and taking their accountability, but it's also saying, hey, camp, or Gabs, being specific with names, maybe we could do this a little bit better, and then providing some space for reflection, because we can't take with our very busy schedules, we can't take accountability if we're not creating space to reflect on some of the things that we can do better. And finally, within leadership, we're looking at providing consistent feedback, early feedback, role modeling as well, when we can take accountability, show how it's done, which is basically you acknowledge, you say what we've learned, and then you prove that you have learned by with your actions moving forward, you have changed. And then lastly, setting clear boundaries. What will we accept at this camp? What we want, and where's the elasticity? And that is our recap for today.
Nobody recaps like Gab. You're the best in the business. Thank you for
Friend.
that. Folks, you can also let us know any other topics you'd like us to discuss or guests you recommend we have on the show. We've had some great folks this season already. And any great leadership training tips you have to share, we would love to hear from you. And if you found our podcast to be useful, we'd love it if you would leave us a rating and review in your podcasting app. Gab, how can they get a hold of you if they'd like to message you directly?
If they want to message me directly, y'all, you can email me at info@waro.com, or you can check out where I work at waro.com, OUAREAU.com.
And that y'all was for you, Ruby. Hope
That
you're
is.
listening. And you can find out where I work at GoCamp.Pro or email me directly at Beth@GoCamp.Pro. And for our next podcast, Gab and I will be chatting once again with Donnie Steele and talking more about the employment study, which we only got to get in a little tiny bit today. And there's so much more to that study and more helpful.
Scratched the surface, truthfully.
More helpful pieces of information for both staff members looking for a job and directors looking to hire.
Mm-hmm.
Our final segment on each podcast is a best practice for leadership training. And today I get to do it. So when we do check-ins with our staff, we should also include check-ins on personal and professional goals. So goal setting to me was really important when I was directing. I would have staff set short and long-term goals related to their roles at camp, and then we would revisit these goals throughout the season. I think when they have personal benchmarks, they're more invested in their own progress. And of course, we always have to do regular progress reviews. So during those one-on-one meetings, we want to discuss their goals and the steps that they're taking towards them. So not just what they are, but what are the steps they're taking to get there. I think that this really reinforces accountability as a personal commitment and not just as a job expectation. Getting staff to voice their ideas and talk them over with somebody encourages them to really have to think about what they want for themselves, both personally and professionally, and it allows you to encourage and inspire them to meet these goals. Creating that culture of accountability requires that balance of clear expectations, supportive communication, consistent follow through, and celebration of progress. And this encourages your staff to take pride in their work, to support each other, and to contribute to that positive, collaborative camp experience. So don't forget to get them to set goals and chat with them about them very specifically. Camp Code is part of the GoCamp.Pro podcast network, and you can check out all our other podcasts at GoCamp.Pro/podcasts. And thanks again for joining us on this journey today. We work together to give our campers, our staff, and our families, and our camps, of course, the very best possible experiences. Thanks so much for the listening, friends.